Hello, Mish. Welcome to the 4th of July week. Uh, I guess holiday shortened, but not really. It's just a Friday holiday. So,
Well, the
you,
day on Thursday, by the way, the one
oh, true, true, true.
was at 1 Eastern on Thursday.
Okay, that's true. So it really is a holiday shortened week. Well, I didn't even think of this. Perfect. Let's talk about crypto because that never closes. So you don't have to be subject to the holidays taking you away from your trading addiction. Uh, speaking for myself. Um,
All
uh,
right. Yeah.
all right. So you wrote about Chain Link today in your soon to be released daily. So I thought maybe we should take a look around at what you're thinking about crypto. So we'll get to Chain Link, but let's start here on Bitcoin. What are you thinking here?
I'm thinking very bullish, and I know you're thinking the same way. So, let's put it this way. You can have more favorable conditions right now for Bitcoin. In fact, you might say it should be trading much higher considering all the favorable conditions with risk on and Qs at new highs and a pro Bitcoin administration, Michael Saylor continuing to buy, all the mass adoption of it, the ways you can trade it, the stable coin situation. I mean, we don't need to go into all the fundamentals. One would think that maybe Bitcoin should be trading much higher, but everything has a mind of its own, as I've come to learn, number one. And number two is it's not too shabby at 100, 708,000. So it's not like it's depressed. It's just dormant. And also, if I'm remembering correctly, when we had Holden working with us, he used to say that on the seasonals, even after the halving, sometimes it takes a while before you start to see it really take off. And, we have had the halving, and then that was last year we had the halving, April 2024. But, the supply, he said sometimes it takes a while for you to see the bullishness of the crypto. So here we are. And we're above.
Yeah, I am a little surprised that it hasn't moved up with all the things that you've mentioned. But it hasn't broken down either. And there's a lot of competition out there with stocks doing well for people who want to buy stuff that could go up fast. So,
Exactly. And that's a really good point because I find like some of my picks outside of the crypto space, they may be doing very well, but they're not the sexy hot stocks. So they sit there until one day they don't. But money, the retail money in particular, we know where that loves to go. So, and we would think it would be Bitcoin, but there's still so much controversy about Bitcoin. It's amazing how many people still think it's just a pile of you know what. But anyway, meanwhile, what the good news is if it is indeed just sleeping because the attention is elsewhere, you have a really, really low risk. And when you're buying something at this level, you want the lowest risk. You have about as low risk as you can possibly get right now because you have the 50-day moving average coming in at around 105, 106. I mean, it sounds crazy. It's only trading $2,000 higher, but it's only trading $2,000 higher. So I would say I would not want to sit around it if it broke down under the 50. And if you really wanted some kind of level of confirmation, maybe you want it to take out these highs here, maybe get back over, let's say 108,300, because that would clear the most recent work, all that recent work, especially if you go back to here, right?
yeah.
That would be a nice little breakout. And I don't think these highs would mean very much. So then, of course, you would want to see, though, this high up here because we had a higher high and then a lower high and then another lower high. But that would be your first hurdle. Your second hurdle would be getting over 110. And then, of course, if we get through all-time highs, I still think this thing can get up to 125, 130, 135, somewhere in that area.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Well, if this thing gets running again, um, I I don't know where it stops. But it's not running. But yeah, if it can that consolidation right now with the tight risk, I like it. And you can buy this with IBIT or any other ETFs. You don't need a crypto account. IBIT is now the biggest ETF. It's BlackRock ETF. So you have good company if you're long that. And the
Right.
options there are pretty good too. I've traded the options in
Oh,
IBIT.
really? Well, yeah,
Yeah.
we had Symphony in it from 44 up to 60, and I got out. Why I got out, I'm not really sure, but I did. And I keep waiting. We finally had the dip last week, but of course I didn't buy it, which is, a big thing these days is that you can't be so afraid of dips, which is, a new bull market. I shouldn't have been afraid of a dip in Bitcoin because it's already been in a bull market. So we'll see. But anyway, that's Bitcoin. The real motion is not as interesting. In fact, where are the moving averages? I don't know why this real motion.
The real motion, you moved it and it went down below. You can't see it right now.
Ooh, this is not real motion then. So
It was below that chart. I don't know what happened.
let's.
Um,
Oh, there it is. Here it comes. Yeah.
oh, okay.
All right. Thank you. I didn't even realize that. Yeah. So, okay. Well, it's still not all that great. It's just sitting right under the 50.
That does not look good. No.
No, the 50's under the 200. So maybe this is our reason why we're not seeing Bitcoin at 120,000 yet, is because there's just no momentum there. In fact, the momentum is not great at all.
Right. Well, look at if you can line your cursor up, look at the high in the next one to the left. Looks like it lines right up with yeah. So that 200 on real motion was the resistance that defined the high in Bitcoin.
Right. So then, the good news is that we actually have a real motion indicator on TradingView, by the way, for those of you who don't know that. And I like to use it. But there's always this argument about what should you be focusing on? Should you be focusing on Bitcoin or should you be focusing on the altcoins? And I have found what makes the space so fun is you can switch. When we got into January, after focusing on the altcoins for 2024, it was time to focus on Bitcoin. And as you can see, that was the smart thing to do. Right going into the year, this is where it started out and then got up here, and then it was time to get out. But now, and then I kind of started ignoring it again. Really, I haven't, except for I bought IBIT when we had this great correction. That's why I got it at 44. But I can't take any credit for that. That was my mom. No, seriously, I talked about this. My 91-year-old mom on a Sunday night after that April 4th crash or 7th crash said, I think it's time to buy Bitcoin. And I went out and bought IBIT. So I can't even take credit for that. It was, yeah. But nonetheless, I think right now the more interesting play is in some of these altcoins. So
So let's dive into those.
let's go to, which one should we do first, Geoff?
Well, let's save Link for last since that was the one that is in your daily.
Okay.
And I would go to ETH.
Well, that was the most interesting. We both agreed before we started this. So this is Ethereum. And by the way, there's all kinds of talks about more mass adoption with ETFs and things like that when it comes to Ethereum as well. And a lot of people have been very bullish in Ethereum and have had to have a lot of patience. Well, I say to them, maybe this is the time. This is even more exciting to me than what I'm going to show you later with Chainlink. Look at this. You have here, excuse me, you have the classic, just about a golden cross, right? So this was after a death cross that we had in February and the last golden cross, which we had in December 2024. So, but what I like about these crosses, what makes me excited, which is what kind of I cover in my book, is when the price is so near these major shifts in the phase. So we literally could be going from a bearish phase, right? Because the 50's under the 200,
Yeah.
price is under that, smack dab into a bullish phase, like in 2 days. So I'm excited about this one. And you can buy this one, Geoff, right through the ETF. Go ahead.
Yeah. ETHE is the ETF.
Right. Now let's take a look at our real motion indicator. Let's forget about this one right here. We don't care about this one. I'm going to bring this one down. Let's bring this one up. So this is the real motion. So the 50 here is above the 200. So this has already been, by the way, in a bullish divergence. But it hasn't really been all that useful in that because, if we're waiting for it to clear the 50, this actually had already broken down under the 50. It's cleared it, but we still have to wait for this price. So I would say two closes, excuse me, and I see my focus is going in and out. I don't know why. But 25.50 would be, I think, not only a great opportunity to get into this at a good level because of the golden cross and because of the momentum, but also with the tightest risk, because if it doesn't work out, boom, you're gone.
Yeah, I always look for the price action to break the moving average before I consider the divergence in real motion to be kind of in effect. So we definitely want to get, I definitely want it to get over that 200, and then the price to get over the 200, which is the green moving average, and then that real motion divergence gets really interesting.
And also, if we take a look at this, this was like a massive double top that everybody thought, Bitcoin was over, Ethereum was over. It's all a bunch of nonsense. But we didn't, we had this sort of moved lower as a result, if you wanted to look at the neckline break here, but we're back above it, is really my point. So if you wanted to have, I think, the best risk, if you bought it at 25.50 on a couple of closes there, I would probably say giving it a little room under 2,400. And then that's where you would know that this trade is not going to work out. And if it does work out, I don't see any reason why this can't go up to, let's spread this out a little bit here. I think we could possibly see, let me just give me a second to digest this. I would probably say I would be looking for move to up to around 3,400 before I would start to think that it's going to run into some resistance. Nice move.
Hmm.
Happens.
Yeah, this 2,500 has really been pivotal. Um,
It has.
this
Totally.
general 25 plus or minus looks like 100 or two, but this would be the place for it to move from.
Okay, so now let's move on. So that is the price of admission right there, hearing that you and me talk about that. So now let's talk about we wanted to look at Solana too.
Milana.
And by the way, notice that Jeff and I are only doing things that have real function. We're not interested right now in looking at things that are, basically what people call fart coins. So I'm just looking at this real motion. It's just kind of interesting here. All right, so let's spread this out a little bit first. This is Solana, and look at it, how this is still in a bear phase, under the 50, tried it today, didn't make it through. And if you don't think that 2 days confirmation isn't powerful, look at this. It got through it. It had but it barely, second day, but then this day it started to fail it. And even if you still wanted to wait one more day, it was obvious on this day when it went lower under the 50 that it wasn't going to work out. So it's the same thing here. You really want to wait for 2 day close over the 50. And Jeff and I talking about this before felt that really you want to wait for this to close over the 200 as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like Solana as a coin, but if I had to choose, Bitcoin looks better, ETH looks better. It would be nice if they could all go at the same time, and then they would all look better. But this one still looks like it's got some work to do.
Right. But look at our real motion indicator. That's definitely a bullish divergence. So just be patient. It could work out really well.
Yeah,
And then the last one, no, two more. We wanted to also show you XRP.
XRP.
Now, I did so well in XRP, if I may brag for a moment. I actually bought it here and I just sat. And then I added and I caught this whole move up, which doesn't sound particularly spectacular when you're talking about something that trades at $2 from 50 cents. But this was a 400% gain. It was amazing. And then I got out. Remember, I said in January, I sort of like switched my attention to Bitcoin. I got out in here somewhere. I don't remember exactly where. I had some targets. And I haven't really thought about it until Jeff and I just said, okay, let's talk about it. But we know that XRP is got some real serious function. It's used globally. It was banned in the US for a while. With the change of SEC, that got better. I don't know if it's actually still particularly legal. It hasn't really been adopted in the US yet. But nonetheless, this XRP is it's like if you want to buy, let's say I don't know, something like a pair of sneakers, let's just say, I'm just going to, first thing that came to my head. You can find it anywhere in the world and it will make that transaction with for very little money, and it'll make it in like 4/10 of a second. So it's really basically a transactional system. And then it keeps a ledger. I mean, it's secure and all that other stuff. It just hasn't caught on yet. That's why it's only trading at 2. And there are people who think this is going to go way higher at some point. But if we look at it right now, it kind of looks a little bit like Solana, doesn't it? It's at the 50, although it cleared it today. And you've got this so close by, you might as well just wait for this to take out 237 for a couple of days before you get in.
Yeah. And if it does that, the 200 isn't really sloped down yet. So you're basically coming back up through a 200 that's pretty positive. The 50 won't take much to turn back up.
The only thing is, and I don't know, it's because of this is so cheap, but if you look at the real the real motion, the momentum, this hasn't gotten through the 50. Look where the 200 is, all the way up here.
Yeah. Well, it had a huge move. That it had a lot to digest.
Exactly. All right. Now, the last one we're going to do is the one I wrote about tonight. And full disclosure, in my Coinbase wallet, I do have a position. So this is a bridge between what's allowed on blockchain and what isn't on the blockchain. So I wrote about it in the daily. We don't need to get into it, but it's a real function. And so what it does basically is it allows you to stay on the blockchain and access data outside of the blockchain. That's why this is called a link. It links these two things, these two worlds together, which I think is something that's going to grow exponentially. And I hadn't really thought about it much, but again, I must give Holden credit, even though he doesn't work with MarketGauge anymore. He and I talk all the time. And if you really want to understand the world of crypto, you got to talk to somebody under the age of 30. So yeah. So anyway, this to me is not based on the phase. Why did I get in? Because I saw, well, first of all, this had this big top. It broke down and it looked like it met the measured move in April when everything crashed. And then when I looked at it this way, I saw this is one bottom. This is why I just looked at it recently. He's been telling me about this forever, but I don't sit with things like the way other people do. I like to, my timing is my skill, right? My superpower. So I saw this bottom, and then I saw this bottom forming. And when I saw this day have an accumulation of volume, I got in. So I paid like 12.19 for it. So now what I'm starting to see, though, is this looks like more and more like a double bottom. We could see the real motion hasn't quite gotten over the 50, but it's closer to the 50 than the price. But if you take a look at the way I look to look at double bottoms is if you look at some kind of a neckline here, it comes in at 1350, and we're over it now for 2 days. And also, if you follow my cursor through here, 1350 has been somewhat pivotal on all these closings. The next spot would be obviously going through the 50 at 1440, and then of course the 200. But I like this. I think if it breaks back down under, let's say, this level right here, which is at 14, excuse me, not 14, what is this, 1273, maybe that would be the place where you say you're wrong. But if this thing can go based on everything I've heard about it, its function, the real motion indicator, and a potential double bottom, there's no reason why we can't see this thing going back up to close to 20 before we have another look. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks like a nice looking double bottom. As you and I were talking about earlier, I like the fact also that Oracle is kind of behind this. So, um, and just the big picture here is this is where it should bottom out and head higher.
if you look at it longer term, 10 was a huge area, which is where it got down to close in April. And then this last correction, it didn't get down there, so anywhere near there. So that's why, and then the volume started. So obviously cash started to come into this. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely looking like a bottom, and if it can get through that 50, it's really going to start looking like a stock that's got some momentum to the or a coin that's got some momentum to the upside. I think the bigger picture here too to keep an eye on is we've got Bitcoin, which is, it's in a world of its own, but that's in a bullish phase. These other coins are trying to move into new phases. And if you have these major coins all breaking their resistance together, then you will know that now is the time. And some of them will be worth getting in before that, like the setup you've got here. And some, like Solana, probably better waiting until the whole gang is going.
Right. So just to sum that up, I mean, number one is if you don't have some kind of a wallet, some of these you can trade ETFs, Chainlink you cannot. So it would behoove you to look into forming a wallet. I mean, we know that the stock coin has done amazingly well. There are other places though you can put some money in for a wallet, and it's, let me tell you, it's perfectly secure. I have removed money, transferred it directly into my bank account with no problem many, many times. And finally, the takeaway here is that here we are, a couple of older people, but as commodities traders, this is why I'm so excited, because these trade like commodities. They're parabolic. They give you opportunity to get out. They reset, they correct, they go back up, or they sometimes sit. There's been, or you can go short. I mean, you can really play with these things without getting too attached. And then finally, what I'm going to say is that from everything that we just showed you, Chainlink was my particular pick right now because it's the way I like to look at things outside of the phase change. The phase change would be great, but it was Ethereum, I think we both said, that looked the most exciting of all of the coins we just showed you.
Definitely. If that breaks out over the moving averages, the divergence uh always wins in my book.
Right.
So,
Okay.
all right. Cool.
Yeah, great. And have a wonderful long weekend. Enjoy the 4th, and we'll see you all next week.
Sounds good. See you next week.
Okay, bye.
Bye.